To me, living intentionally is, everything that you do has a purpose and all of your actions, are mindful and have meaning. It's really about having some sort of purpose and having some gratification in what you do. So, everything that you do, you're getting something out of, or you're learning, or you're growing.
This is Intentionally Ever After. Join intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek for a series of personal conversations and coaching sessions with various people about how living with intention shows up for them.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Intentionally Ever After. Today, I'm very pleased to be speaking with Jessica Wyant. Jessica, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Jessica, will you kindly introduce yourself to folks?
Certainly. So my name's Jessica Wyant. I am a wife of an incredible man that I've been with for the past 23 years, high school sweethearts. I am the mother of a 15-year-old boy, real quickly becoming a man. And I've been working in project management for about the past 15 years in various tech and marketing spaces. That's the gist of it right there.
Excellent. So where in the world might you be this morning?
I am in Santa Cruz, California.
Excellent. Jessica, what does it mean for you to live intentionally?
To me, living intentionally is, everything that you do has a purpose and all of your actions, are mindful and have meaning.
Yeah, I like it. I like the succinct, straightforward definition. What does it look like in your life when you're living intentionally?
To me, it's really about having some sort of purpose and having some gratification in what you do. So, everything that you do, you're getting something out of, or you're learning, or you're growing.
How does that show up for you, say on a Monday in mid-November?
The food that I eat, and prepare for myself in the morning is like going to sustain me and, make me feel good throughout my day. The relationships that I have with the people that I'm interacting with are fulfilling and rewarding. And then, the actions that I'm taking for myself throughout the day are helping me to be the best version of me. So, making sure that I get a walk in and, making sure that I'm doing things for me as well as, my obligatory duties as, a wife and mother and, in my job.
Oh, I love that. Obligatory duties. What do you consider to be an obligatory duty for the men of your household or in those roles?
I mean, taking my kid to school in the morning. I wouldn't say it's obligatory. If I didn't want to do it, I don't have to do it. But as a mother, you just kind of feel like some of these things are your roles. So, taking my kid to school in the morning, cooking dinner for the family, meeting with my kid at night to make sure that he has his homework planned out for the week and that he's organized and that he has everything that he needs. He has ADHD, so he has a difficult time focusing and organizing his life. So I really, as much as I would like to give him the space to kind of figure it out on his own, anytime I do that, it's not super successful. He ends up kind of falling behind very quickly. And so really, kind of staying on top of him and making sure that I'm helping guide him. So that would probably be the biggest obligatory duty on my side, because my husband is not so great in working with him in that capacity.
Meaning less patient, as males of that demographic typically are? Yeah,
definitely less patient. And he just doesn't, almost less compassionate in a way. Like he just doesn't think about all the other things that a 15-year-old teenager that just started a new school this year and has ADHD and has the raging hormones and all that stuff is going through, and why that could lead him to have missed an assignment or not paid attention in class or something like that. So my husband doesn't really think outside of that. He's quick to just be upset about the lack of action on my son's side, as opposed to understanding why that could have happened.
And from your husband's perspective, what do you think it is he expects or wants? What would be success in his mind for your 15-year-old?
My husband he is a very amazing man, and he surprises me every day with like the amount that he's able to get done in a day. I mean, he wakes up and he like rolls straight out of bed and is like knocking stuff off the list every single day. And I think he expects that, our son should be able to do the same, like organize himself and have a list of things to do and get that list of things done. And like my husband we're high school sweethearts. So I went to high school with him. And
you know how he was.
Yeah. And he never had any issues, getting his homework turned in and working a job and, having a social life and, all of these things. So I think that he expects the same from our kid.
And that makes sense, right? Because that was his experience. So
yeah.
That's his way of relating to your son, likely, right? Because he's likely unable to relate to, by the way, we haven't brought up COVID, right? I don't think there was a global pandemic happening when your husband went to high school. I don't know how old he is, but I feel like it's safe to assume there was not that happening as well, right?
Definitely not.
And it also sounds like your husband continues to be a very busy and efficient and productive member of society. So maybe not a lot of space is reserved for perspective taking, especially of a 15-year-old, right?
No. And I mean, that's kind of the balance that I bring to our relationship, is, hey, stop, take a break a second, like think about what you're doing, actually like reminding him to be mindful. I ask him all the time, I was like, can you please be mindful when you do something as simple as walking out into the other room? Can you make sure you close the door so the cats don't get out? Like simple things like that. He's just like go, 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 operating at like 100% almost all the time. And so I have to remind him frequently to like, hey, stop and think about things a little bit.
Sure. And they are simple things as you've laid them out. But I'm curious about how that sits with him, mindfulness. I know for a lot of folks that I interact with, mindfulness can have a triggering effect for some folks, thinking that maybe it's a little, too disconnected from their day-to-day, or it's a luxury perhaps. What do you find is the typical response when you bring up being mindful?
There is like a resistance for sure. I actually haven't thought about it until you brought it up right now. But yeah, there is like a resistance, kind of like a okay, I guess, type of response to it. But he's also the great thing about my husband too is that he is also like very receptive to like a lot of things that I say. So he knows that if I'm saying something, there's a reason for it. And especially if it's something that I repeat, like he really does try to make note of those things and apply them. Even if I do have to repeat myself many times, he does really try.
Sure. And that makes sense given his track record. Certainly he's been successful in being in a relationship with you, so he knows how to fall in line after a certain period of time, it sounds like.
Yeah, there's definitely like, give and take just in like any relationship. So same goes with me, if he has something that, is bothering him or that, he brings up to me, like there's that compromise and trying to figure out how to work with each other.
What do you find is the best way for him to bring up something to you that maybe you don't see or that he feels like you need to hear?
So we're both really direct communicators. So there's really no hand holding or like coddling or anything that needs to happen. Like you don't have to say something in a very specific way. It's just like, hey, I noticed this thing, maybe you might want to approach it this way or think about it this way, or, or this bothered me, like we're both really good about communicating in that way. So there doesn't need to be like a special way to bring it up or a certain time or anything like that. Obviously, there does need to be a certain time, right? Because it can't be in the middle of my workday when I'm about to go to in a meeting or, like if we're doing something important, obviously there needs to be a time where we can actually have that discussion and be able to like talk everything out. But yeah, it doesn't need to be set up necessarily.
Okay, so you don't have something on the schedule necessarily for this is our time to check in.
No. I mean, we both work from home, which is kind of one of the luxuries that COVID has granted us. So we're home together all the time. Not to say we're in each other's faces all the time or anything like that, but pretty much, if I'll go and work in one room and he'll go work in another room, and if either of us is not in that room, then it's basically fair game to to chat and check in.
That's great. So you do kind of have a system in place as far as where you're physically located and a certain time to check in, or at least a time not to when you both are in your workspaces.
Yeah, and we kind of give off that vibe too. Like when we're in work mode, we're both like, it's obvious. Like there's a different just way that we interact with each other, Yeah,
that makes sense. So you mentioned a little bit ago, you make sure you do certain things in your day to, get what you need to get, or so that you can perform your obligatory duties. What is one change in habit that for you has had an exponential payoff?
Most recently, it was a change to my sleep schedule, so being a mother, being a wife, my father also lives with us, so kind of like, I don't take care of him necessarily, but there's also that kind of that care component there, like making sure that he's okay and checking in on him and stuff like that. And we have cats and I take care of the cats, so at the end of the night, my husband is pretty good about going to bed. Like actually, so he has bipolar disorder. So he takes a medicine called Seroquel, and that puts him to sleep like immediately. So when he takes his pills at night, like he's out by 10 o'clock. So I can pretty much guarantee you by 10 o'clock, like and then my kid's asleep by 10 as well. So 10 o'clock is like the only time of the day where I'm like, oh, everyone's asleep. Like my dad's asleep, like kids asleep, my husband's asleep. And then I'll just do things, but not like anything significant. Like I'll scroll on social media or I'll watch TV or, I'll just do whatever, but I'll end up I would end up staying up late, till like midnight, sometimes like 1 a.m., just like enjoying that time to myself. But it definitely had like a negative impact on my sleep. And I am one of those type of people that needs like 8 hours of sleep a night, or at least like 7, to properly function. And so more recently, probably since my kids started going to school again, like actually going to school, which was just in August, I've been like forcing myself to go to bed by 10:30. I have an alarm on that like goes off to remind me like time to go to sleep. So that's actually made like a huge impact, because the next day, obviously I'm going to have more energy. I'm going to, and having that routine has actually like helped me a little bit as well.
Well, it sounds helpful. It also sounds like it's reduced your me time, quote unquote, significantly. If the guys are still getting to bed around 10 o'clock, that reduces it to half an hour. Mm-hmm. Are you finding you become more efficient with your me time, or is there a certain cost to that?
I don't really feel like I'm actually missing out very much, because like I said, I wasn't really doing like anything substantial with that time. Like I was kind of, just wasting that time, if you will. So yeah, I don't really feel like I'm missing out too much. It is a little difficult for me to schedule me time into my day, especially typically start work, around 8:30 in the morning, and then family's home and ready for dinner by 6, so there's not a lot of time in there for me to schedule that in. But I am trying to get better about utilizing that time after dinner, before bed, like making sure that I'm getting my me time in during that time.
What might that look like?
I mean, I've been trying to get like meditation as part of my daily routine in, and then like some sort of physical activity, even if that's just stretching or yoga or, walking. So those have been kind of like the main things that I focus on. If I could get those 2 things in during the day, then, I'll feel really, really like, all right, like I did it. And then, I have like a list of other projects that I've kind of been working on for a while now. And so like, if I'm able to kind of work on even a little tiny chunk of any of those things, I'll feel good about that as well.
Is that still the same category though? The projects? That sounds more like a productivity, efficiency more than me time, or is it one and the same?
I don't know. It's hard for me. Yeah. It's hard for me to make the distinction sometimes because it's something that I really do want to do, right? So like I collect crystals and I have a lot of them. And so I've cataloged all of them, so I can look back and be like, okay, I know what the name of that crystal is and, the locality where that came from and all that. And one day I was like, maybe I should create like an Instagram account for these. So there's a picture that is, like where this catalog could live, like a visual catalog as opposed to like an Excel spreadsheet. And so like that'll be something that, would be like one of these projects. So it's not like, yes, it's like productivity in a way, but like it's also like a hobby, it's something that I enjoy. So yeah, it's kind of hard to make that distinction between like an actual project and me time because, I don't know, they kind of blend together.
Sure, but we're not talking about a project like I have to fix the stairs or I have to do laundry or I have to go grocery shopping. Nothing like that.
Oh, no, nothing like that. No.
What have you said no to that has made a significant impact in your life?
So my husband and I are quite social people. We have a lot of friends, typically in the past have gone to a lot of events. And so we got invited to a lot of things. And for the longest time, it was difficult to say no when someone invited you because, you didn't want to hurt people's feelings or you didn't want to, there was like the FOMO, you didn't want to lose out on that experience. And so probably COVID actually kind of made it easier, right? To be like, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. But that also made us realize like, oh yeah, we don't have to say yes to every single thing that people want to do or people invite us to. And there's definitely been like a freedom in that and like being able to kind of have a little bit more control over our schedules. So we're not so busy because prior to COVID, we were super busy all the time. I mean, pretty much like every weekend, like someone would call us to be like, hey, you want to do this weekend? When we look at the calendar, like, how about, 6 weeks from now? Like, so it's nice to like not have a crazy calendar like that anymore.
Do you find you're able to say no directly now, or are you still using COVID as an easier way to do that?
I'm not sure that I ever say no directly. I probably.
Well, wait a minute. You said you and your husband are very direct communicators. Does that mean just to one another?
We are with each other, yes. But, like when it comes to other people, we don't want to hurt people's feelings, right? So there might be some, something like, oh, well, we might be busy that weekend. We'll get back to you. Like it's more kind of like, well, we have to see what's going on with the family and let you know, right? Because I don't know if Dylan has, an assignment to do that weekend or if he has football or, so it's more like, yeah, like we got to check in with the fam first and then get back to you.
Sure. Do you feel like it's an acceptable response that would not hurt someone's feelings to say, gosh, I think we just need a weekend off?
I mean, yes, that's definitely an acceptable response. And one that I wouldn't necessarily, depending on who it is, like one that I wouldn't necessarily avoid.
Okay. Well, you don't have to throw any of your more sensitive friends under the bus. I won't ask you to name them. That's okay. What area in your life feels just about perfect?
I mean, talking about kind of our social life, like the support system that I've built for myself between, friends, loved ones, what have you. I'm very happy with that group of individuals that makes up that support system. And I would say that's like just about perfect. The people that I have in my life and the amount of support that I get from them.
I like the way you phrase that, the support system that you've built. How do you consider that you've built it?
I mean, just the relationships, and the friendships and the dynamics that I have with each of the individuals that build up the support system. And it's people that, have joined my life from all walks of life. So I have friends that I've been friends with since kindergarten. And then I have friends that, I met at my last job, so people that kind of span, all age groups as well, so I have kids that I nannied, when, I was 18 and like now they're, in their mid 20s and, they still, reach out to me. We still have a really good relationship. And then I have, older individuals that, that I've met at jobs and stuff like that are like in their late 60s and they're great friends to me as well. So I really love having, just these relationships and friendships that I've built, over the years and like kind of this wide variety of people.
How do you navigate and negotiate all these different people that you've curated along the way?
I mean, it's just kind of been a natural thing for me. I'm just really good at being social, I guess, or at least social with, the people that are in this group. It's not, the nice thing about it is that the friendships and the relationships that we have don't require a ton of effort, right? Like I can talk to them twice a year, or I could talk to them once a month, like the amount of time that we communicate is not like indicative of how close our relationship is. So there's sometimes where I get really busy and I won't talk to somebody for, a few months. And then I'll think about them and I'll send them a text and just say, hey, how's it going? And then we might, get on the phone and have a phone call. And then we don't talk to each other again for another 6 months or something like that. And that seems to work for both parties. So, I mean, that's kind of pretty much like how this network of people is built up.
Yeah, well, it's great. It sounds really low maintenance. So help reconcile this idea for me of these low maintenance relationships, pretty easy. You pick them up whenever you think about them, but you don't have to like constantly check in. Reconcile that with the idea that you don't want to hurt people's feelings on the weekends by saying no to them.
I mean, I don't think, like, if I just said no, I don't think anyone would really be that upset about it.
I bet you're right. And I don't know any of these people, but I bet you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. They probably wouldn't. It's more just, probably it's more my thought than it is theirs.
Sounds like your previous thought, not even your current thought anymore.
Right. Yeah. But I think there's also that because they are low maintenance, right? And I'm not necessarily seeing these people a ton, that when that invitation is extended, then it's almost like even more important to potentially accept it because they don't happen that often. So then I think that's where I kind of feel bad, like if I do want to say no, and that's why I want to like kind of save face a little bit and like not make them feel bad. So.
Sure. But, well, it sounds like it's not so much about you not wanting them to feel bad, but more about them understanding how much you appreciate them and their relationship to you, maybe.
Yeah, actually, definitely.
Yeah, it's so, my wondering, I guess, is the next time one happens, it's less about, well, I can't say no, but I know it won't work this weekend. It's, I really want to get together with you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, when can we get this where it works for me and Dylan doesn't have a bunch of extra work and we don't have 3 things already scheduled for this weekend?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's usually where it ends up going. It's not like...
It sounds like with someone as busy as you are, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it usually ends up going that way. Like, oh, sorry, can't this weekend, whatever is going on, or not sure if I can. But if it ends up being a no, then it's like, how about some other date in the future?
Right. It rarely sounds like it's a no period, right? It's a no but or a no and, right?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that date never happens. There's just some people that it's just, you get that opportunity and if you miss it, then then it, doesn't come back around. But
sure,
yeah, usually,
they're more like Haley's comment, right?
Yeah. But yeah, usually try, as a way to maintain those relationships, usually try to get something on the books to make up for missing whatever the invite was.
Who is someone you admire and what do you admire about them?
So there is a musical artist named India Ari, and I've been listening to her for about the past 20 years. And I really admire her she makes beautiful music, but with really positive messages that really like bring home kind of, thoughts of like strength and courage, wisdom, just really like really powerful messages. And especially as a woman, anytime I've listened to her music or seen her live, I mean, it's really emotionally invoking. And so, and then she just handles things with like such grace, and just the way that she speaks about things is just really impactful. And so I really admire just all those things about her.
What do you imagine some people admire about you?
I am a very good friend. I'm very loyal. I'm a good listener. I do hear that a lot from, from my friends and colleagues. I'm very dependable. So like if I say I'm going to do something, like I have a lot of like honor in that way where, if I say I'm going to do something, I follow through, and I'm very adaptable as well. So, I've been thrown into lots of crazy situations in life, as most people have. But being able to kind of like easily kind of adapt and navigate those situations is something that I think is admirable quality.
If you were to increase intentionality in your life, what do you think that might look like?
Probably instead of like being such a task rabbit, actually like give more thought to every single thing that I'm doing every day. Right. I do try to be mindful and try to have intention when it comes to a lot of the ways that I take care of myself and take care of my family. But like in terms of like what other side projects that I'm doing or whatever I'm doing with work, instead of just going and getting that done, really probably thinking a little bit more about, is this really what I want to be doing? That would probably be it.
What if the answer is no to some of those things?
And I probably need to reevaluate and change direction. It's difficult though, living in the world that we live in, and, with everything being kind of so tied to finances. I would still have to work, a full-time job while kind of trying to figure those things out. And so then, it limits ability to kind of, and the time to kind of figure those things out.
Sure. It certainly reduces flexibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the necessity for a certain level of funding. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jessica, what other thoughts do you have that you would like to share?
Not really a ton. I feel like, we've kind of talked about, a whole gamut of things here, given me actually a lot more to think about. It's funny because it's like you think about things, but sometimes it's just like a fleeting thought. Like I'll consider something like very quickly, and then I never like give it too much thought. But then someone asks you that and you're like, oh, actually, So I think that you've kind of given me a lot to really like dig into and consider more on my side.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I think for a lot of people who are even open to meditation and wanting to make sure they fit it into their day, I would suggest that just reflecting on what you're doing in your day is a form of meditation, right? Mm-hmm. It's carving aside that time, not just to maybe listen to a guided meditation, which is what a lot of folks do, certainly in the beginning, but carving aside space for just looking at your daily schedule even, and not from a TaskRabbit standpoint of how am I going to possibly fit this all in, but why are these things on my calendar, and what would I want more of on my calendar? And I use calendar as an example because for a lot of us, that's just how we negotiate our day-to-day. But I think carving aside the space, which is similar to what you've done here by having a conversation with me today, it's reserving the space to think about these things. And I think it would benefit a lot of people if we just took some time to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's interesting too that you bring up like the guided meditation versus like carving out that space to think about things, because I know a lot of the guided meditation is guiding you to not think, right?
Precisely, which there's a benefit to, absolutely, mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, so it's interesting to consider it from that perspective.
Yeah, I think so, at least. Well, Jessica, I really appreciate you taking the time to consider all my questions and to do some reflection and share your reflections with me and with the listeners. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Great, Joe. Thanks for having me. It's great speaking to you today.
This has been Intentionally Ever After, hosted by intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek. If you would like to have your own intentional conversation with Joe on or off the air, visit intentionallyeverafter.com. Thanks for listening.